okay, get my mouse. Come on. Okay, and so as I mentioned before, so something like CSS grid is very new, and for a long time before that, people want to use grid layout, but it does not support by CSS. So that's why the library like Bootstraps come about. So people can lay out their page using CSS grid, even when the browser is not supporting that yet. And so today, Bootstrap is not really needed in that sense, but Bootstrap itself also provides some nice formatting and for your website, which can be useful as well. Okay, and so there's two main useful things coming out from, say, libraries like Bootstrap. Okay, so first and very quickly to cover what is third-party libraries. So in the report for the coursework, you have to specify any third-party libraries you used. So these are the other component people created, and which you can use on your website without having to repeat the same coding. And so it can be quite broad. It can be about JavaScript, can be CSS, can be many other things. So this is one example. Say, it gives you a material design feeling of a web page. And basically, it provides these formatting of different components of your web page. And so if you want to use them, your page will look exactly the same feel and color as these defined in these libraries. So this can be a very quick way to get, say, a fairly good design. But also the downside is, everyone use the same library will have exactly the same feel, and which sometimes can be good because other people can easily recognize different components on your page, but also means maybe your website is not as unique as it would otherwise be because everyone shares a very similar design. So there's many common third-party or popular third-party libraries, and besides the Bootstrap, say the jQuery is also again one of the very popular ones, at least in the last few years. And in terms of Bootstrap, it was originally developed by Twitter. You would all have at least heard of it, and it includes some HTML, CSS, and JavaScript components. But mostly it's about CSS. And when it was first released, I think maybe quite a few years back, at that time, and responsive design in the browser, the media query itself is only just starting, and the grid layout is not supported yet. So these are the two main things it wants to design to support, to provide responsive design and the grid layout. And so these are some instructions about how to get or use or include Bootstrap into your own website. And this is for an older version of 3.3.7. Now it moves to version 4, but you just need to follow the exact same command. And I guess the way is exactly the same. And in your HTML file, you need to include in the required files for the external library, in this case Bootstrap. So besides, for example, this one, you include in a CSS file defined by Bootstrap, and it will give you a URL, which means that files can be loaded online. You don't need to include it in your website. But Bootstrap itself, in the older versions, also relies on jQuery. So that means you have to load jQuery as well. And finally, you have to load a JavaScript file for the Bootstrap. And again, if you look at Bootstrap 4 website, it's slightly different. It's a bit small. But still similarly, you have including one CSS file and some JavaScript file. And in this case, they're no longer using jQuery and using something else to reduce the size.
So we use jQuery?
I don't think so. First. No, that's it's still using jQuery. Okay, but using Popper for something else.
What is Popper?
I don't know. I can't remember. They use that for very specific things. Okay, and some small things has to be HTML5, say doc type, and this one allows you to set the viewport, and this line only relevant for mobile devices. And so what it says for the viewport, you want to initially set as device width, so how wide your display is on mobile device, and the scale is equal to 1. And this is something you can actually change. For example, you can set a scale bigger than 1 and then focus on only part of the page. For example, if you have sidebar, you can set it only to display the main part. Okay, and for the Bootstrap grid layout, it's quite similar to the CSS grid layout. And you have to first define something called a container. So this is similar to when you say you set a container class to display grid. So instead of that, you set it to container or container fluid, and that's something there. And then after that, you can define the rows and columns of the components inside that. Okay, and by default, Bootstrap using a 12-column grid system, and so in a sense, it's less flexible than the CSS grid. In the CSS grid, you can define how many columns array you want, but in Bootstrap, it's fixed to 12, and which is mostly okay. And that gives you, say, different width of your component if you want, either using 1 columns or 4 or 6 or 3 sometimes if you need 4 columns. Okay, and then you first, to add anything using grid system, you first have to define a row. And it's almost similar like the HTML table, where you define a table in HTML, you first define a row, and within the row you're adding cells. And here, you define the row. The class has to be called row because that's the keyword defined by the Bootstrap. And you define within each row how many columns you have and what's the size of each columns. And you can say, I want a column which is a small size, which will explain what that is, mainly designed for phones, and I want 4 of these. So this one will define a component width that counts for 4 columns, which is about a third out of the total 12 columns that Bootstrap defines. And you can have small, medium, and large columns. And let me see later. Okay, so this is example. Say I first define a row, and then within the row I have a few divs. I set each div a different class. That's how it sets the width. And I said this is 4 columns, small size. So these will be 3 columns or 3 divs, all of the same width, and each is 4 columns. And this is what it will look like. And then you have, this is what it looks like here. And you can also say, I want another one. This is a new row. I set width as columns small, but this time I want 12 columns. That means the entire row, which is this one. So this is a demo. Okay, and that's exactly what you've seen before. So we defined 3 small columns and 1 12 columns component and 3 4-column component. And you can see these will change or resize responsively, depends on what you set. So when define this as small columns, so it will change about this width into the single one, and if you define this as larger ones, and it will change even earlier. Okay, and so this is the behavior of different sizes we define as small, medium, large, and XS. So this is the cutoff point, just we discussed earlier as the media queries. So that's say when it's less than this, and this is how the XS would behave. So you can see, depends on the specification or the size or set, and you have different cutoff points for the small, medium, and the large columns. Okay, we're going to skip these fairly quickly. and you can put a picture inside a column and it will resize. But you have to set the class as this, so you can see this picture would responsively change size, depends on display size.
I think it's Bootstrap 4, they changed to fluid. EMG fluid.
Yeah. Okay, and that part is useful to know, but I personally think because now you can use CSS Grid, you don't need to use that part of the Bootstrap anymore. But the other part, actually more useful, is using the predefined component in Bootstrap to make your web page look slightly nicer. Okay, so you can add Bootstrap to your page, and without changing anything, it's already changed the looks of the website. And in most cases, make it look nicer. So, for example, let's open this example in CodePen. Okay, and this is a very simple web page, and it has a title, a paragraph, a link, and some code with HTML element, and then a table. Okay, this is default display in the browser without applying any formatting whatsoever. So it will use default font, default color, default everything. And this is in CodePen, and which you can actually load other things to it. And for example, I can say I want to use Bootstrap, and it will automatically apply Bootstrap. And you can see, okay, and it might be slightly harder to see, but you can see already, and it changed the font of the page because Bootstrap has its own font. I personally think this looks better, and change the color of the link, change the formatting of the code and of the button, and more importantly, change the formatting of the table automatically. So if we go back, maybe we can duplicate. And then we take out the CSS, the Bootstrap, and you can see what it would look like before without Bootstrap formatting. Then it's really a personal choice. Do you think this one looks better or this one looks better? It's really up to you. But I personally think in many cases the Bootstrap one formatting is better. But again, that's the same problem because Bootstrap is very popular, and using Bootstrap will make your website looks quite similar to many other websites. Okay, and so besides there's default formatting, there's many other things which is quite useful, which is defined in the okay, so for example, you can have many different buttons with different color predefined, and you can have badges is maybe less useful, but badges are these little texts. Maybe carousel is so carousel is quite common, but actually in terms of usability, it's not the nicest thing to do. So the carousel works like you can have images which will change automatically, or can scroll manually use these things. And so the collapsible is actually probably more useful, and which can give you something like a mobile menus by default. It's not even here. Can't find examples. That's enough. Wow, where is the collapsible ones? Okay. Very end. So for example, you can have collapsibles to hide the entire menus when this becomes displayed on a mobile device. Okay, we'll have to stop there. So in terms for the coursework, you are free to use Bootstrap or not, and there's no particular marks for using or not using it, but usually it makes your web page design looks a little bit better or more professional by using the component.